Right, I need you to put down whatever you are holding, because the story that has been quietly building this week has just reached the kind of moment that makes you sit very still and stare at the middle distance for quite some time. A man is reportedly miserable. His children are on the internet, and the two things are connected in a way that the official Sussex communications team would very much prefer you not to think about too carefully. Something happened on Easter Sunday that stopped me dead in my tracks, and I need you to understand the full weight of it, because on the surface it looks like a rather sweet little home video, and underneath it is one of the most extraordinary contradictions this entire saga has yet produced. On the 5th of April, while the royal family gathered at Windsor for Easter service in the manner they have done for generations, Meghan Markle posted a series of videos to her Instagram account. Chickens in a garden, a stone footbridge, little Archie and Lilibet racing across a manicured lawn with their dogs, hunting for Easter eggs. Lilibet in bunny ears. The whole thing is rather lovely if you watch it with absolutely no context whatsoever. Warm California light, children laughing, the kind of content that does very well on Instagram, which of course is precisely the point. Because here is the thing that I cannot get out of my head. Just over 2 months ago, that same man whose children are running happily across their lawn on camera stood in the High Court of England and Wales and told the judge with genuine emotion that his life had been commercialized since he was a teenager and that he found it a recurring and traumatic experience. His own words, in a court of law. And then his wife posted videos of their 6-year-old and their 4-year-old to her public account, which has millions of followers, to promote the image of a warm and wholesome family life. And Harry, reportedly, has allowed it, has, according to a source speaking to the press in February, evolved on the subject, and now trusts Meghan completely when it comes to decisions about sharing the children. One does not know quite where to start with that sentence. Evolved, as though having principles about your children's digital exposure is a position one naturally grows out of, like a fear of spiders or a distaste for mushrooms. He has not evolved. He has simply stopped objecting. And those are two very different things. Now, I want to be careful here because I am genuinely not in the business of being cruel about anyone's children. Archie and Lilibet are not fair game, and they never will be. What is fair game is the adult decision-making that surrounds them. And the adult decisions being made here deserve proper examination, because they sit at the very center of something that an enormous number of people have been pointing out for quite some time. This couple has built their entire moral authority on the claim that they were fleeing a world that exploited them, that privacy was sacred, that their children would be protected. And yet, royal commentator Tom Sykes, who attended every single day of Harry's High Court trial, has called him outright a hypocrite for allowing Archie and Lilibet to be made part of what he describes as a highly visible, public, and commercial narrative. That is not a fringe opinion delivered by someone with a grudge. That is the observation of a serious person who sat in that courtroom and listened to Harry plead for the protection of private life, and then watched the Instagram posts appear. There is also something rather telling about the specific nature of this content, and I want you to think about it carefully. These are not accidental photographs. These are not paparazzi catching a glimpse over a hedge. These are professionally composed, carefully edited videos with the children's faces mostly obscured, but their presence very much central to the warmth of the image, posted to a brand account timed to coincide with a major holiday. The children are the emotional engine of the content. They are what makes you feel something. And what you feel when you see those little legs running across that lawn is exactly what the As Ever brand wants you to feel. Wholesome, connected, warm. That is not a family sharing a private moment. That is a family used as marketing material in a way that is, as critics have now been saying for months, functionally indistinguishable from the commercialization Harry claims to find so traumatic. But here is what I I find most interesting of all, and this is the part of the story that has not been getting nearly enough attention. Harry reportedly does not want to be in California anymore. A source speaking to Radar Online at the very start of this year said he has reached a breaking point with life in Montecito, that he has told Meghan plainly he no longer sees a future for himself there, and that he feels profoundly unhappy and directionless. No close friends, no sense of purpose, deeply homesick. A man who walked away from everything he knew and has apparently discovered that what was waiting on the other side of that decision has left him feeling rather hollowed out. And while he is reportedly feeling all of that, his wife has pivoted into what many are now describing as her mumfluencer era, leaning into family content, wellness content, the beautifully lit domestic idyll that is the Sussex Montecito brand. What I am trying to understand, and I suspect I am not alone in this, is how those two things sit together. A man who is reportedly unhappy, isolated, and longing for home, and a woman who is building a public identity around the warm domesticity of the life that is apparently making him miserable. Insiders described him as fiercely protective of his children's images, and yet the Easter videos went up. And sources are now telling us he has simply decided to trust her on these calls. Whether that represents genuine agreement or something rather more like a tired man running out of the energy to push back is a question that I think deserves to be asked plainly. There is also the not entirely unimportant matter of the nannies. Reports this week have confirmed that this couple has cycled through an extraordinary number of household staff, including multiple nannies, with one source describing the experience of working for the Duchess as dehumanizing. Royal expert Kinsey Schofield has said publicly that the number of household staff departures is far higher than people realize, because the professional staffing changes make the news, while the household churn goes largely unexamined. 3 nannies before they even arrived in America, apparently. This is worth mentioning not because I want to make a meal of domestic staffing arrangements, but because the mumfluencer identity being constructed right now rests very heavily on the image of a warm, nurturing, present mother. A woman who is instinctively and authentically connected to her children. And the reports of how her household actually operates sit rather uncomfortably alongside that image. There is something almost achingly ironic about the timing of all this, and I want to give you the sharpest version of it. King Charles is preparing for his first state visit to America. There are reports circulating that the question of whether he will see his grandchildren has been raised, and that it remains entirely unclear. This is the King of the United Kingdom, a grandfather, and there is genuine uncertainty about whether his own daughter-in-law will allow him to spend time with the 2 children who are now apparently appearing quite happily on her Instagram account for millions of strangers to watch. The children who are private enough to justify refusing their grandfather a proper visit are apparently not too private for a curated Easter egg hunt video set to soft morning light. I find that rather a difficult combination to defend. And this right here is the central paradox of the mumfluencer strategy. Privacy has always been the shield. It has been the justification for keeping the children from the royal family, for refusing engagements, for the extraordinary legal battles, for the whole machinery of Sussex communications, but has been running at full tilt for 6 years. We are protecting our children. That was the mantra. And now the shield is being used selectively, strategically, in a manner that draws a rather neat distinction between privacy from institutions and family that have been deemed inconvenient, and visibility on a platform controlled entirely by Meghan, on her terms, in her framing. The children are protected from Windsor, but available to Instagram. And a great many ordinary, sensible people have noticed that those are not the same principles principle operating consistently. They are two different principles being applied to produce the same outcome, which is maximum control over the image. Harry's people said in February that he has evolved on sharing the children. I want to suggest a different interpretation. A man who is described as isolated, homesick, purposeless, and running out of options is not really in the strongest position to be digging in on questions of Instagram strategy. And the woman who, by multiple accounts, is the driving intelligence behind every communications decision this household makes, has apparently decided that the mumfluencer pivot is the play. Whether Harry is enthusiastically on board or simply no longer objecting is, I think, a rather significant distinction that the February source rather glossed over. What none of this is, and I want to be absolutely clear about this, is a story about Meghan being a bad mother. I would not say that, and I do not believe it. But motherhood and the performance of motherhood are not identical things. One is private, ordinary, imperfect, unglamorous, and entirely off camera. The other is a brand strategy. And the Easter videos from the 5th of April were not candid moments shared in a private group chat. They were produced, edited, and published to a public account with millions of followers. And they will have generated considerable engagement for the As Ever brand. That is not cynicism talking. That is simply describing what happened in plain English. The children of the king's son are being made into content. Their grandfather, in the meantime, prepares for a state visit to the country where they live and cannot be certain he will be permitted to hold their hands for an afternoon. And their father stands at podiums warning about the dangers of exposing children to the machinery of social media, and then presumably watches the Easter egg hunt clip do its numbers. One simply hopes that somewhere in the quieter moments of the Montecito estate, when the camera is switched off and the chickens are put away and the children are in bed, someone is thinking honestly about what all of this actually is, and what it might look like one day to two children who grew up as brand assets for a lifestyle company before they were old enough to have any say in the matter. Because children do grow up. They ask questions, they look back, and the answers they find in the archive of their mother's Instagram will say rather a lot about the choices that were made in their name. One hopes those choices were made with something more durable in mind than the engagement rate on an Easter post. And one hopes rather fervently that somebody in that household is capable of saying so out loud.